Lifebrary, a podcast dedicated to your personal story. A story which is not merely a collection of events, but a powerful chronicle that encapsulates the essence of who you are. Understanding the importance of your personal story is to recognize the significance of your voice in the grand symphony of life. Let's get connected.
Hello. I'd like to tell my story about this bad year. 2024 has been a very unusual and what I want to say negative year for me. It basically started in February on a regular day, walking out to get into my car, which normally is on a slab in the backyard next to an alley. I get out there, and would you believe my car is already in the alley? And I thought, how can this be? There's no way. I didn't move the car. Who could have moved my car? What happened to my car? Did I not put the brake on? All those things that go through your head to wonder what happened. And I get up to the car, and the driver's door is torn out. The steering column is all torn apart. The rear view mirror is pulled down off of the glass. The window is broken. The ceiling is down. But of course, and my car is in the middle of the alley. Surprisingly, I didn't understand why no one in the apartment buildings across from me had come to my door and say, your car is in the alley. Or even the garbage man going through would have stopped maybe and said, your car is in the way. But nobody stopped me. Of course, the first thing you do is call the police. The police did note that numerous times just that past week, a group called the Kia Boys, and I had a Kia car, a Kia Sorento, top of the line, but it was a 2015, and it had 45,000 miles on it. I'd had it for 8 years. It always was on the slab. I'd never had anyone break into it. And I did everything that Kia had suggested because this was a thing happening in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the cars were being stolen and even creating havoc with people and having accidents and whatever, but also just being stolen for parts, etc. Anyway, the Kia was able to be put on a tow truck, and I should say that the only reason they probably, from what they told me, did not get away with the Kia was because I had followed the rules and put a kill switch on the engine. I had a club on the car wheel, and I actually had some special locks put on the doors. So those are the reasons why they tore it up so much. But that tearing it up and feeling that the best person to take it to would be Kia so that they could fix it, it created a lot of trouble for me. My insurance did cover the costs of the fixing of the parts, but they wanted what they call aftermarket parts, which is parts used on other Kias that had been destroyed and still salvageable. They don't want to pay for brand new parts. Kia was not real happy with that. So it took totally, I want to say approximately 4.5 months before they finally finished the work. Meanwhile, often, every other week, the insurance or Kia was calling me about problems they were having with the other person. And when I say that is, Kia would say, would you please talk to your insurance? Because they don't want us to use new parts. And it's taking so long, it's really their fault. Well, then Safeco would say, would you please talk to Kia? And meanwhile, I have an independent agent. And I would call the independent agent And she'd say, they're not supposed to be doing that to you. But truly, at least once a week, I was getting mixed up and involved in what was going on. And it was nerve-wracking, to say the least. Now, what you should know is I'm also a very religious person. So I started praying and saying, Dear Lord, deliver me from all this trouble. Get it done fast. I'd like it to be over. I had to rent a car from Enterprise. They were very, very nice. But in your insurance, and this is, they said, is very common, they only pay for the first 30 days of a loaner car. Do you realize it was 4.5 months that I did not have the Kia? Therefore, I paid out approximately $3,000 to Enterprise to have a rental. And then again, odd things happen, like Safeco, my insurance, says, we don't have to cover your rental. Well, then my independent agent says, that's not true. They have to cover your rental. And I'm just saying, this went back and forth. Every week it was a different problem. And I would bring it to the senior center and talk to the friends, especially the men, about the problems I was having. And they would say, oh, Mary, that's absolutely ridiculous that you're going through all that. But the truth is, there's nothing you can do. You just have to wait it out. You just have to wait it out and pray that it's going to be over soon. And don't get me wrong, you kind of pray too about, why did this happen to me? And people would say, what are you going to do, Mary? What are you going to do? I'd say, you know what? It's just a car. It's a car. You get another car. You got to think of it that way. You can't take it personal. The Kia boys did not come to my house to get me. I was lucky. I was not outside when it happened. No one hurt me. That week, numerous people had gotten hurt, pulled out of their cars and stuff, and things were taken. So basically, I tell myself, I'm lucky. I don't have even that trauma to worry about, to think about, to feel bad about, to dream about, and thank God for that, So you have to thank God for the little things. Even though things weren't going so well, I just kind of was praying and hoping things would be fine. And when people would say, what about it, Mary? I'd say, you know what? It's not my health. I'm not having trouble with my health. I'm only having trouble with a car. We'll get another car. Not the end of the world, okay? Anyway, needless to say, 2.5 months into all this happening, I get up one morning. I'm absolutely fine for 2 hours. I go outside with my garbage and with my bags that I put in the car to actually go to the senior center, which I do frequently. And I put the garbage away, and I'm thinking, gee, it's awful humid today. Am I having trouble breathing? Now, you should know I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't have an inhaler. I don't have oxygen. I don't have breathing problems. I just thought, gee, it must be the weather. And I got in the car, and I drank an Ensure, which I often do, and I drove to the senior center. And I get there, and I get out and try to get I have a walker that I use to walk with, and I get the walker out of the back seat of the car, and all of a sudden I am panting like you wouldn't believe, not able to catch my breath. Not only that, my arms feel like they're numb. I feel like my head is spinning, like I'm seeing stars. So I sat back in the front seat, and when a friend came by, I asked the friend to help me get into the senior center. And I did get into the senior center, into the back door, on a chair next to the computer to check in. and I couldn't breathe. I was seeing stars, couldn't lift my arms. I assumed I was having a female heart attack. They talk about how females have a different kind of a heart attack than men. I did not have any pain in my chest. I just couldn't breathe. I was panting like a dog. And immediately they called the paramedics. Actually, West Dallas paramedics came. They asked me a few questions. I answered them. And then I want to tell you, I must have gone unconscious. I don't remember them putting me on a gurney. I don't remember them putting me in the ambulance. I remember waking up just a short time in the ambulance, seeing things go by, and him saying, "We're taking you to Fredert." And I basically said, "I don't think you can. I'm an Ascension patient." He said, "You're going to Fredert." Again, I became unconscious. I don't remember them taking me out of the ambulance. Don't remember getting on the bed in the ER. But if it wasn't for the doctors that worked at Fredert on me quickly, and that is, they diagnosed a bunch of things and sent me for a CAT scan, and it came out that I had clots in both lungs. To their point, 90% in one lung and 60% in another. The doctor, I'll call him Dr. Chris, that's not his whole name, it's a real long name, said that they were going to have to do an operation where they would go through my groin up into my lungs and with medication that would loosen up the clots, suck out the clots. And I want to say they worked quite quickly. I was in the in the OR by, I guess, 4 o'clock. But I will say even during that time, I was on oxygen full blast. I was on, I guess, some medicine like albuterol. I can't always say I remember what all happened. Every time they would come in, they'd ask me a lot of questions because one of the big problems right then was not me, but they could not get any information from Ascension. Ascension had been hacked by computer specialists who had wanted money from them, and they, I assume, did not pay them for it because they got hacked. So you could not get into their, what they call a My Chart, which had all your information of all the things that you had gone through since you'd been their patient from, and for me, it's for lifetime. I've always had them. So they would try to ask me questions every time they would come in, and I'd try to wake up and say, "No, I have no allergies. No, I don't smoke. No, I this. This is my brother." They wanted my brother to come in right away and show power of attorney for healthcare and any kind of last rights decision-making kind of papers, because this was really serious. They were going in to the lungs next to the heart. He already said he was surprised that I hadn't had a heart attack because I wasn't getting the oxygen. I was at a 70% saturation rate, and they felt that they were shocked that I was still here. Anyway, the truth is they did a wonderful job at Fredert. I am so glad they did take me there. By that night, the oxygen was reduced because they had gotten everything out that they could. And by even the second day, I was already on room air and back to breathing normally. But I will say one of the big problems was they now use dyes in the CAT scans, and those dyes can do harm to your kidneys. I don't have the best kidneys due to something else that happened to me a long time ago. Anyway, they had to keep me in the hospital 4 more days just to clear my kidneys. and they wanted to do another CAT scan to prove they had cleared everything. So they waited the 4 days, they did another CAT scan, and they had to wait another 4 days for that to clear. But basically, I came out of there with, and I had blood, I had 6 IVs going, I had 2 anesthesiologists in the OR because they were kind of concerned things wouldn't go right. But again, everything went very, very well. I was discharged after 10 days. I want to say Medicare is a wonder. I have good health insurance because I worked for 35 years and my insurance continued after I retired. That truly, I was surprised at the minimal amount of a bill that I ended up getting. I also got a minimal amount of bill from EMTs. I was surprised at that as well because you get a bill. But I'm just saying, so I get home, and of course, the Kia is not done. I'm waiting for the Kia. And when the Kia gets done, they call me to say it's done. Come pick it up. I go pick it up, and I don't even have it an hour. And I realize they have not fixed a couple of the things that are broken. No backup camera. No things that, some of the things that were on the steering wheel didn't appear to be working. So within an hour, I took back to Kia and I said, this isn't working. And the young lady said to me, well, we can't fix that right now because it's July and the people that fix that are on vacation for 2 weeks. So they will have to come back and then you'll have to bring the car back and we'll check it out. I was so mad. I left there, and the very next day, I bought a new car, and I traded the Kia in. I did look for cars during the time that I didn't have a car, that I only had the loaner. I did look for a car because I even thought, should I buy a car and not have a loaner to save the loaner bill? But there's supposed to be a Kia settlement program, and you had to keep the initial loaner the whole time. So, and the other thing is, when I check out of Kia, the day I check out, they can't give me papers to say what they are because guess what? Russ Darrow Kia has been hacked. So I could not get any papers that were printed on what little items they had replaced and what had gone on and how much it had all cost. And to this day, have not gotten the papers from them. They only wrote out by hand that everything was paid in full and that I didn't owe them anything. My point is, I go and I buy a new car. I love my new car. Actually, I struck up a conversation with the young man who sold me the car, and he too had had a Kia, and he too had had his vandalized, and he too had sold his car and was happy he got rid of it. So we kind of bonded a little bit. And 2 weeks later, he calls me to say, did you hear about your Kia? I said, well, it's not my Kia. I said, you mean your Kia? And he said, well, did you hear about it? I said, from who? And he said, well, I got a story to tell you, he says. Someone took it on a test drive. I said, oh, you don't have to tell me. It got stolen, right? He said, no. I said, oh, was it in a bad accident? He said, well, not exactly. I said, what do you mean? He said, the engine blew up. He said, aren't you glad you weren't in the car when the engine blew up? I said, again, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Maybe this is what you've been trying to tell me all along, that you wanted me to get rid of it back in February and was hoping that it would be stolen. It didn't get stolen, but still, I am lucky I got rid of it before something happened. Meanwhile, too, I probably should go back and say, I prayed a lot the day I got sick. I lost a child at 14 who had numerous cardiac problems, and she would tell me all these different tests they do and how it feels. And it was funny to go through the tests and think of my daughter as I was taking the tests, how she would describe the stuff, and how, yes, as a parent, you are, want to be helpful and want to be sympathetic and want to be loving and, and whatever. And yet you really don't realize until you go through the stuff what really can happen to you and how it feels, how it really feels. So I want to say I was praying through my health problems. I was praying through the car problems. And my only final answer to this whole thing is God does work for you. It just takes time. You have to understand that when you make a prayer or a call to God to help you, that doesn't mean He's going to help you in an hour or a day. It may take a month. It may take a year. It may take longer. Don't give up praying and don't give up thinking that you will get help, because I think help is always there in one way or another.